So my sister and I were talking about what she remembered when I got admitted to the hospital, and she said that, the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They kind of knew what was wrong with me. I had a lot of doctors, and my organs were failing because of the immunotherapy. So my immune system was taking over and just killing everything. So every morning my oncologist would make rounds. He was always the first doctor in my room, and every single morning, he said the same thing. He was a very positive man, very positive doctor. I kind of knew him on a personal level indirectly through my ex, so we had a little bit of more of a connection. But he said the same thing every day, like, we just got to get your immune system to stop fighting, so I'm giving you everything I can, and all I can do is give you prednisone, which is a steroid and stops the drugs from working, essentially. So I had a liver that was failing, and I had kidney that was failing. And the crazy thing was, because my kidneys were failing, my sodium levels were through the roof. And the fix, apparently, this is when I always say, doctors are just practicing medicine. And they're just human beings, but that's what they do. They go to school and they learn, and then they practice what they learned on patients. So they do the absolute best that they can, but they're still practicing. So I had one doctor, Dr. Zhao. He should not be a doctor. He was my kidney doctor while I was in the hospital. And he would come in every morning, and he had an accent, a thick accent, very difficult to understand, but his message was very clear. And one of the fixes, apparently, for having super high sodium levels is you have to reduce your intake of water significantly. So I was allowed 50 ounces of water a day. So, this isn't as big as a hydro flask, but we all know what the medium-sized hydro flask is. So it was one of those and about this much more of water in a day. And I had to swallow pills every 4 hours, 24 hours a day, and I had to swallow them with water. So I almost couldn't get through the swallowing of my pills with the amount of water that I was allowed to drink. And then I was really freaking thirsty. I couldn't get an IV of fluids because fluids was fluids. So anyway, this man's messaging to me was, your sodium's too high. You need to get your sodium down. You drink too much water. Don't drink so much water. And I would explain to him, I only drink water to swallow pills. What do you want me to do? So they would give me sodium pills, as big as a horse pill, of salt. So I took salt, and then I had a liver that was failing. And one of the worst things for liver is high sodium diets, alcohol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I was giving my body tons of sodium from one doctor. The other liver doctor's like, shit, your liver's failing and you can't get a new one because you have cancer. So we have to fix it or you're going to die. So it was such a clusterfuck. And after a week and a half of all of these pills, piles of pills, my whole mouth broke out in this. It's almost like thrush if you had a baby. So my mouth had a little bit of an infection. So then I had to drink this disgusting crap every single time I got pills, swish it in my mouth and swallow it. So it was hell. And as crazy and as horrible as Dr. Zhao was, the other doctors were so kind. And every single one that came through just looked at me puzzled, wondering how they were going to save me. And there came a time when I realized by looking at their faces, they were all at a loss. And one doctor specifically was so sweet. He was just rounding at this hospital, and he came in my room and he said, I won't be at this hospital again, for probably 2 months or something. And he said, so I won't see you again. But I wanted you to know that I called an associate at Mayo, and he suggested that we do this IV drip on you after hearing what was happening to my body. And he said it was literally all he could come up with, and he wondered if I would be open to it. So it was just a 3-day IV drip, and I'm like, I really didn't care at that point. He thought it was a good idea. From what I heard, Mayo was a great place, so I said yes. And I remember when he left my room after asking me if I would, I was stupid crying. And he so gently touched my foot, and he looked at me like I was his child, and he said, I'm going to be praying for you. Oops, phone call. He said, I'm going to be praying for you. And that's when I realized he had done all he could medically do to help me. And we were back to prayer. And ain't no coincidence that that's what's got me here today. Hand to God, it is the divine that did it through a lot of people helping. But I really believe that it took something bigger than doctors to save me.